What's up, people? We are back with another episode. Shout out to our guy Jason. I think we just are doing this one probably solo dolo, just a quick recruiting thing. We're not in here for a long time, but definitely got some stuff to talk about. Got Chris Mason here, Sooners 360 himself. The Patreon, go check it out. Also, people got to give a quick plug real quick. Last night, I was fortunate enough to be on the podcast with my friend, Brady Trantham, through the Keyhole podcast. So definitely go over there and check that out. Definitely gave a shout out to my guy Chris Mason and Jason on there as well. And Brady was definitely kind enough to have me on there, but also talk about, hey, go check out those guys doing their thing as well. So definitely go check out that podcast once he drops it. It's on his Patreon right now, and at some point it'll be on YouTube. So when you get a chance, definitely go listen. We were really just showing the optimism, pessimism, I guess, towards VV. I'm on the optimistic side, as you guys know. He's a little bit pessimistic, but we talked about the season in full, just kind of things in the past, things leading up to here, and how important this season is. So with that being said, we are here for recruiting. As you saw on the cover, art or whatever you see, recruiting with Chris Mason. Anytime you see that, like I said, be ready for kind of a short form video. Going to try to keep it under 30 minutes if possible, but we got recruiting stuff to talk about. So with that being said, Chris Mason, we have some commits. We have some philosophy changes, different things that we need to talk about, the balance that OU fans need to find in recruiting. Where do you want to start? Honestly, wherever you want to start, go ahead.
Well, I think we should. Last time we were talking mostly about Bo Bentley and all the situation with that. So let's just talk about the two guys that OU picked up earlier this week. Daniel Norman from Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, and then Bo Jandro, Nico Jandro's twin brother from Hamilton, Arizona, linebacker. I think Jandro was expected as soon as OU got Nico's verbal commitment. It was sort of assumed that Bo Jandro would be a Sooner. Mm-hmm. He's a Mike linebacker. And I think the biggest plug here is that both Oregon and Texas, even though it was pretty clear Bo Jandro was leaning to Norman, brought him in for official visits. They were trying to do everything to sign him. So when you combine the total linebacker acumen evaluating Bo Jandro, that's Dan Lanning, who knows linebackers, right, from Georgia and at Oregon. You've got the Kwiatkowski guy at Texas, who is their linebacker coach and is a longtime linebacker coach, just like Brent. And then in the OU offices, you've got Brent Venables himself, Nate Dreiling, and Wes Goodwin. So you've got three college linebacker coaches, excellent linebacker coaches. And then you've got players and personnel views like Rufus Alexander, Skolsky from Clemson. So, I know he's a 3-star and he's not ranked very highly by several of the services. They have him as like number 120, 115 linebacker in the country. Rivals has him as a high 3-star and has a much better view of him in terms of linebacker. But I've gone back and forth on Bo Jandro a little bit, but at some point you've just got to take the weight of all of that linebacker knowledge and linebacker coaching evaluation and skill and say, Bo Jandro is probably underevaluated. Now, I think two things are causing him to be underevaluated. He only played 6 games as a junior, so he was hurt. So you've got that limited film, even though he was highly productive in it, 90 tackles. Tackles for loss, interceptions, sacks. But he only played 6 games. So apparently he was bigger, faster this spring. And every major coaching staff that went to go visit him this spring were raving about Bo Jandro and offered him. I mean, his offer list was pretty much comprehensive for the big-time programs in college football. And he just settled on Oregon and Texas as the 2 places he's going to visit, as well as Oklahoma. So, I'm not arrogant enough to say that I know better than all the weight of that knowledge linebacker knowledge. So we'll see. He's a Mike linebacker. They're listing him at 6'1", 215. I think the 6'1's a little generous. The 215 sounds about right. But if he can play at 230, 235 at Mike linebacker at 6 foot, 6'1", and he can keep the acceleration, physicality, and violence he has right now. This is an interesting, good Mike linebacker pickup. It's a little different than where OU has been recruiting at Mike linebacker recently. Marcus James, 6'4", James Nesta, 6'3", and obviously Stutz was 6'4". Kobe McKenzie is at least 6'2".
It feels
he's a little smaller. I mean, he's shorter. The question I have is if he can add the weight and keep the speed and acceleration, then this could be a surprising pickup. I just think he's badly underrated where he is right now.
So if I could jump in, Chris Mason, I would say kind of gives, and I definitely want to get a comp from you, but kind of feels a little bit like two-part. First off, kind of gives that Kip Lewis vibes as far as just adding guy to the mic. And then also, I think one thing that we can say about with Kanak, pretty much they tried him pretty much everywhere to try to keep him at linebacker. And I know at Mike they were talking about that, but just instinctually it just wasn't there for him, But it seems to me that I kind of feel like obviously with Stutz and Stutz was great and amazing. I feel like they're trying to get a little bit more athletic at that position, maybe. I mean, is that what? I mean, that to me just this screams that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Well, I mean, Stutz was a ridiculous athlete. So, the one thing I will say for Bo Jandreau is he looks very instinctive, sideline to sideline. Shedding blockers, making plays, hitting guys. I don't have a Kanak. I don't worry about him playing linebacker, right? He knows how to play linebacker. The only issue I would have is can he put on the weight and keep the same speed and size that he has currently in high school? And so he's very physical. He's very much, he's a big guy. He's in fantastic shape. If you ever seen the kids on Instagram or on YouTube or on Twitter, I mean, the guy is. Both the Jandreau brothers are hitting the weights. They're not missing leg day, arm day, chest day, abs day. They are some ripped kids. So overall, I think it's a good addition. I my only doubt again, if it's his senior film, maybe one of those senior films where we just go, wow, that's a completely different guy. Because like I said, Chris, he went from limited offers until coaching staffs went out to Hamilton and watched him play, and then all of a sudden, everyone's got to have him. Josh McCuistion on the Sooner Scoop podcast, he says his sources say that Jandreau is like a top 5 linebacker on the West Coast, in the old Pac-12 territory. So there are lots of people saying this guy is great. So I think, just sit back, see where he is and all that. So we need linebackers. So it's a big pickup at the linebacker room. He's a Mike. Ja'Cory Smith is a Will. So at the very least, you've added 2 linebackers in the class that have clear positional fits for the OU defense.
So let's switch gears and let's go to the Norman kid. What are your thoughts about him?
Well, it was kind of a surprise that he verbally committed to OU from a certain perspective. I love the kid. He's every bit 6'4". He may be closer to 6'5". He's got a huge wingspan. He's got explosion and twitch off the edge. He plays for a great high school program that routinely puts kids into the Power 4, Power 5. He could easily be a 6'5", 260 pound defensive end. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the class group, potentially, OU's obviously trying everything they can to get Jake Krull. But if you could add Jake Krull to Matthew Nelson and Daniel Norman, let's just this is how I like to view it. if Jake Cruel enrolls early at OU, say, let's he commits and signs with OU, he's ready to play. If you've not watched his film, Jake Cruel is ready to play and be a factor in your 2D.
Facts.
Daniel Norman needs a year maybe to develop. Daniel Norman needs a year to develop. And Matt Nelson maybe needs 2 years to develop just because he's got to add weight and to his frame. Although, if he rolls early and everything hits, he could be ready earlier. So you're basically setting yourself up for, your biggest money is going to go to Cruel, and it gets on the field immediately, right? And then the money to Norman gets on the field within a year, and then whatever money you dedicated to Nelson will see the field in 2 years. So you can let him stew and develop, marinate and develop for 2 years. Norman develops for a year, and Cruel hits the field running, and he's an immediate factor. So in the new economics of value and those situations, those 3 guys, are kind of spaced out. So if you did pick up a 4th guy, from that standpoint, if you got the D'Anthony Lafayette kid from Orlando, he enrolls early and puts 10 pounds on his frame. He's 6'1", 245, and he's our Mason Thomas, like way ahead of schedule, or Nick Benito way ahead of schedule, and that guy plays as well. So all of a sudden, those guys hit the ground running for you from a defensive end standpoint.
Lafayette is somebody I know Unc is definitely excited about the potential of that kid. So adding him would be great. Let's kind of shift gears to something we were talking about behind the scenes, and I think this is a great place to start. I see, Topher and other folks here in the chat talking about Josiah Jefferson. He's calling Josiah Jefferson a Ute. Not sure if that went down. If that did go down, then hey, kind of happens. What are your thoughts, or what have you heard about Josiah Jefferson? Is that a wash? It seems like money was thrown around pretty late, right?
I'm looking at Twitter. I don't see that he's announced anywhere.
Okay.
He announces. I think he's supposed to announce tomorrow.
The things Topher knows, though. That's the thing, though. Topher B knows a lot.
Well, I mean, okay. So some of the sites are reporting that Utah's making a big push, and OU is trying to get. I mean, okay. So if the thing for Utah may be that they can take Jefferson as a 2026 kid, right? For OU, you've got to get him for him to make sense for OU. You have to get him on campus this fall, right? Because otherwise, you don't want Jefferson in the same mix as potentially Ruxer and Mix. Okay, we have to watch on an app. Okay, well, Topher, if that's what's happened, then okay, Utah's offered him a scholarship, and that might be that Utah's willing to take him for 25 or 26. My understanding was OU needed him for 25. Otherwise, in 26, he would be competing with 2 freshman tight ends who are just more polished tight ends. So you needed to get Jefferson on campus this fall. If you couldn't, then it doesn't really work for OU to bring him in next fall, because then he'll be behind Trinae Washington, who's a very similar athlete kind of player. And then you've got, if you get Ruxer on 7-7 to go Ryder Mix, you've got your tight end room in much better shape. So, Topher says it's a scholarship at Utah over OU being a preferred walk-on. If that's accurate, then that makes total sense. Utah does a good job at tight ends. I mean, there are any number of tight ends all around the NFL from Utah. They do a good job coaching there. This isn't a again, if Topher's right there, and again, this decision has been kind of lingering out there, and basically Tony, his brother, was able to leverage OU to getting some appeal around his brother, and it worked out well. He got offers from Arizona, and he got offers from Utah. If I was him, I would take the Utah offer of a scholarship over a preferred walk-on position at OU, especially at the tight end position. Mm-hmm. He needs to develop some, and if Utah is willing to take him on, then this is one of these situations where this would have been a nice to have for OU.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I said, you guys keep forgetting that Trinae Washington is 6'5", 230, similar athlete to Jefferson, and he's already in the OU program, weightlifting, learning the offense, and he could be ready next fall. So
I think the problem is just the bad taste that everybody has in them.
well, it's been a bad. Let's just move on. So Daniel Norman, I love the kid, huge upside. I think OU's getting a steal here.
Mm-hmm.
Top 150 kid in the country. I think he could easily be fringe top 100. All right. That's the good part of this week. Then the rest of the week basically went to shit, right?
Yeah.
Dallas Dickerson chooses Kentucky because Kentucky's paying more than OU's willing to pay.
True.
Why? Because Nagy's not going to move off certain numbers with kids because that's how you get in trouble. That's how you when you start throwing money around at lower ranked kids and treating a low 4-star like a high 5-star. That's where problems start.
Yeah.
So that's why we lost Dallas Dickerson. We lost Desmond Green. We were never getting him. He chose Florida. It was going to be hard to get him away from Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia, all expressing interest. You could have won a battle against maybe one of those schools, but 3 of them, you're just not pulling a kid from South Carolina away from those 3 schools, at least not yet, not coming off a 6 and 7 season. Then they lost Craig Dandridge. They were leading on Craig Dandridge, and then UGA lost their best wide receiver, Vance Spafford, from California to Miami. So OU was nicely positioned. Then UGA lost their best wide receiver. UGA's wide receiver recruiting is kind of a mess, and their development is a mess. So they had to not lose their in-state star. Dandridge is from Milton, Milton, Georgia. So they had to. So they got Dandridge that way. And then, the shocker really was, and no one saw this coming, was Jaden Petit from Florida choosing Wisconsin like out of nowhere. That one was like, okay, why? I mean, let's just talk bad business decisions just overall, right? First off, that coaching staff, if you think Brent's on the hot seat, Fickell is on the serious hot seat, right?
I can see
that Wisconsin program. I mean, if you've looked at Wisconsin's schedule, it's not OU hard, but for Wisconsin's talent level, it may be worse.
Well, the problem for me with Wisconsin is that I feel like Fickell has his tenure at Wisconsin, and if any Wisconsin fans watch this or whatever, look, I know BV's our coach, and we love him just probably as much as you guys love Fickell. But what I will say, just on the outside looking in, it just felt like Fickell has never came in there and put his imprint on that program. Like, he has never came in there and gave them the identity that a lot of his past teams have had, like Cincinnati teams. It feels like they're still running under the same framework that old Wisconsin teams, were running. And like, there were times last year where you felt like they had a little bit of life, and then just key injuries, different things like that happen. They're going to be a physical ball club. They're going to have fight, but you can beat that ball club. So it's just one of those things where you kind of look over there and you're like, who the hell is passing the ball to him? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. That's the only thing that gets me. But also the Odom kid as well. Odom committed to Nebraska. I don't think too many people were up in arms about it, but I mean, it just seemed like some of the kids that I think more or less we thought that, okay, we're going to get these kids, didn't necessarily happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, Danny Odom went to Nebraska. Nebraska lost C.J. Bruneau to Florida, and Nebraska panicked. He was their number 1 kid on their class. Their class isn't very good. It's a little all over the place, and they lost their number 1 guy. So Nebraska decided they were going to get Danny Odom, and they outbid Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma. So from that perspective, that's why they landed Danny Odom. Do they keep Danny Odom? I don't know. They may not. If I'm Jaden Petit, go visit Wisconsin in November, dude, and then get back to get back to Florida and realize, what's going on. Where are you going? And it's just not a development environment for wide receivers. So I just think it's a terrible decision. Obviously, Wisconsin is panic buying a wide receiver class. Luke Fickell is panic buying players, and that's really the Jaden Petit situation. From this perspective, I think you guys need to understand there's a lot of panic money in the market right now until July 1st. And then July 1st, we're at least in a proposed new guardrail environment. I know Jason doesn't think that's going to work. He may turn out to be right. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't have a read on this. But OU has been making their offers, doing everything to make sure that they're, to run their business, moving forward. Nagy doing evaluations and making sure that the problem you're going to find is if you're paying one freshman big dollars and they're sitting on the sidelines, and next time you turn around, next time you turn around and you reevaluate, just like with David Stone, we saw this a little bit with some other players. Wisconsin has to come back to Jaden Petit and say, well, you only caught 12 passes for 200 yards in our offense, and Luke Fickell wanted you. The new coaching staff doesn't. We're cutting your money, and you need to go transfer somewhere. I mean, that's going to be the reality of possibly the reality of the situation there. I mean, so everyone's talking about OU being cheap and broke, and it's all kind of you're not looking at the big picture. One, OU is not going to overpay for average talent, and Nagy is evaluating talent at a different level. Okay, this isn't when you say Joe Castiglione is being too cheap. Joe has nothing to do with this. Okay, the OU's OU's moved to a different model. The Stevenson guy from AT&T found Nagy, and Nagy is really kind of just he's doing things in a different way, and Joe doesn't like hand him money every day like a fucking allowance, guys.
Well,
this isn't how a corporation and OU football is now a corporation. It's a football franchise works.
He's more of the okay man, the approval guy. But just like we were talking about off screen, let's kind of dive deep into that. I think there's a balance that OU fans are going to have to find, and that balance is in recruiting, at least, is just these two philosophies: how to let those coexist while you're in the middle trying to figure out which side you really want to be on. So obviously, you still have kind of the 5-star rating. I mean, the star rating, right? You want the guy with stars. You want all the rest of that stuff. That still is going to matter a lot as well. But on the other side, kind of that Nagy preference is I can find the guys with the best intangibles and the most potential. Maybe there are projects
and the best measurables
and the best
who we can develop, right? So both the intangible, like both the classic term is makeup, right? And this is sort of the attitude, work ethic. This is the makeup, and then you've got measurables, and you look for guys that have both, right? You look for guys that are multi-sport athletes who when they focus on football are going to be enhanced, as opposed to someone who's just focused on football, like a 19-year-old freshman who's been so focused on football that he's not trained his body in other ways. So the essence is, OU lost some guys. What do we have coming up? Because those guys are in the rearview mirror, right? You could go back to them. They could. I mean, guys, it's still June last time I checked, and OU is not going to waste money or recruiting emphasis right now on guys that are focused elsewhere. Now, and coming off a 6 and 7 season, you have to realize this is the worst recruiting environment that an OU coach is facing sort of externally versus other college football programs since John Blake was coach. I mean, we're talking Blake era negativity in terms of recruiting, right? And if you guys don't remember the John Blake era, and I try to forget it every day I wake up, you know, it was bad. But when you focus on the fact that
they had players, though, they got players,
they had players. These were, John Blake could recruit some kids, but he just couldn't develop them, right? And they were a backbone of a national championship team on defense. The offense was really high pull, but
can I jump in here for a second to kind of?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead. Yeah,
guys, it's either one way or the other. You're either going to go in with the scientific approach, a template approach like Nick Saban did. You got to understand that by the time that Nick Saban won a bunch of all those titles and everything, and this is kind of goes the same thing with Clemson. They won their first one without any 5 stars. They won their second one with a bunch of 5 stars. But why were they 5 stars? And here's the thing. Nick Saban didn't just go in there and get every 5-star from day one that he got to Alabama, nor to LSU. That's not the way it goes. What you do is you go find the guy that fits your template. It's a scientific, this is a caliber of a player. You build rosters with pro-ready bodies. With pro-ready bodies. Whether or not, and some of them may not be ranked 5 stars. Some of them may not. There's a reason that they didn't go get these Oklahoma kids. Obviously, Jim Nagy is not looking at these guys as a must-get guy. Now, you look at what's the DB that's his brothers or the Oklahoma State.
Presley.
Look, he's going to fit. He fits that profile because of his size. They're gonna make a move for him. Whether they get him or not, who knows? But here's the thing: when you start and people are freaking out about this whole deal with, and you got Cody Light over there talking crazy about how Oklahoma's in shambles and all this. Meanwhile, they're still in front of you, dummy. In recruiting as far as that goes. But either way, you have to look at it as they are choosing to go with, first off, like you said a minute ago, they have a money number that this is what we're going to slot you in at. With Josie they are bound and determined that they're not going to go over this, this cap or anything like that. And they're not going to go under the tables because we all know that Joe Castiglione is Mr. Compliance.
Very by the book.
Yes, sir. So
which is fine, but
that is okay for the time being until you figure out all this stuff, which I agree with you. I agree with what I said before, that the other deal is the Deloitte stuff is going to be what it is. It's going to play out, but I don't think it plays out in their favor. That being said, right now what's happening, think about this. We're a few days away from July 1. July 1 is all this shit goes into play. So you've got certain people like Wisconsin that are scrambling and throwing extra money at it. You've got BYU throwing extra money at their quarterback situation. That was smart on their part. They have to do that in the Big 12. Oklahoma doesn't have to when you're going and getting guys that can come in and be immediate impact guys, or that they're going to be an impact guy because of what they look like. It just is what it is. And Jake Cruel, they've got a crystal ball for Jake Cruel. Now, that doesn't mean that they can give up on what they're doing, but I'm guessing that the money for Jake is a little different than what it was going to be for the kid that is going to Oklahoma State. You told us last week he was going to Oklahoma State.
What's the surprise here? There is no surprise.
Right.
Overton,
yes.
He's 6'2.5", 275. He's a 3-tech. He plays the same position.
I don't care that he's a 4-star. We got a guy, Brian Harris, that's 6'5" and freaking 300 pounds almost.
So the problem, that's and again, once 7-1 hits, things are going to get a little interesting. Now, whether they stay interesting, that's again the courts and all that nonsense. But OU will be in a position where Nagy can have more leverage to recruit with guys and set numbers with guys. Like, look, you're not getting this money from these programs any longer. Mm-hmm. So, that's what it is. OU's like Valdon Stoney is a classic example. There are programs willing to pay him David Stone money. And he's not David Stone out of high school. Yeah. He's from Sweden. He's only played college football for 2 years. I mean,
If
high
I-
school football for 2 years. OU's not going to pay him, Jalen Brewster money. They're just not.
It depends on where you look, Sooner Cowboys, whether or not Harris is a 3 or 4 star. They've got him as a 3 a lot of places. So, I mean, let's just not act like that, it's not going out there both ways. The point I'm trying to make is we're so hung up on whether or not we get this kid from Oklahoma or not. Look, it can't have it both ways. You're either going to go with what they want and go with the way that this scouting department is working. You trust them or you don't.
So, Jason, let me jump in here real quick if you don't mind. So, Sooner in Texas, he says, I'm not comfortable with this money ball philosophy yet. Not saying they are wrong, but trying to figure out how we win when others are willing to overpay for recruits.
Because you lose them the same way you get them.
Well, my response to that is what I was telling you weeks and weeks ago, Jason, and everybody in here that may agree with Sooner in Texas sentiments. This is what I have to say to you guys. Welcome to the true pro football focus. Welcome to the era in which the pro guys, such as a Ron Rivera, a Jim Nagy, a Bill Belichick, they come in here and they actually tell you
who's good and who isn't,
who's good and who's not, and who's an NFL guy and who's not. The NFL focus is about to come in here, and the NFL model is about to come in here as well. As soon as as long as these teams continue to go to the NFL for front office stuff, because you've seen kind of a mixed bag of things happen as far as the GMs. Whereas you're getting these hard-nosed guys like a Ron Rivera, Bill Belichick, and you're getting these brilliant NFL minds that can go and find a 2-star, 3-star kid from Podunk, Oklahoma, and say, hey, he's going to be a superstar. But you're also seeing, some schools are going out there and really they're hiring GMs to basically come in there and just be, the Statue of Liberty, be a tourist spot, right? A tourist attraction, excuse me. So, I mean, you're seeing a mixed bag of it, but when you get back to football, they're putting people in place that can go in there and construct and build a team. So I think people got to understand that this when you go to this pro model, which is what it's really turning into with this de facto CBA that's in play by the House settlement now, you gotta understand, people, that Belichick, we all know his track record in the draft. I mean, he's drafting guys in the first round, second round, third round from Gardner Minshew University of Horseshoes. So let's just be real. Whenever you're just basically grabbing guys from there and turning them into all pros, I think you know a thing or two about football and what you're looking for. So this is the reality that's probably about to set in, because you just, everywhere you're looking, you're seeing a lot of front staffs staffs being built to mirror things that you see at Oklahoma. I mean,
it's the same thing that I was talking about. That's what I was saying with Saban. When when you go in there and you win, now all of a sudden his identifying the guys that they're identifying at that school are now ranked higher. Period. End of story. So if you go out there and you win with these guys, which they should, we know that this team is loaded, especially on defensive talent and depth. They've got competitive depth out the ass when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. It looks like you got plenty of that depth, in my opinion, right now, unlike last year, on the offensive line as well. And they went and they've got deep at the running back position. But when you start looking at some of these guys, are you going to tell me that this kid was going to be better than the other kids that they've already got? Was it so important that you win and got that kid, the Oklahoma kid that's the number one guy in the class, that we knew we weren't getting because they weren't going to pay him? They were not going to pay him what Oklahoma State is. And guess what? Oklahoma State has to do that because they went 0-9 in the Big 12 last year without Texas and OU in it.
I hear you.
Overton didn't have Oklahoma State in his top 6 2 months ago. That tells you all
I
you need
wonder
to
what
know.
that has to do with then. That why does he end up there? I mean, look,
Because
you either trust him
know,
or you don't. That's the point that I'm trying to make. And so if you
let's
go
be clear.
win like you should, then all of a sudden these guys are going to get the benefit of the doubt. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt now in view of the fact that they've been scouting at the NFL level for a total of 65 years and about 60 years worth of high school scouting on that staff as well. That I think they know what the hell they're looking at. And we know that you got a bunch of freaking hustlers out there that are just hustling their damn camps and clickbaiting. They need you to give them stories. So it's not always about who's the best and who isn't.
Do we really think, and I'm not knocking the kid, I like Taj Overton, but he's not David Stone. He's not Tommy Harris. He's not Gerald McCoy. Do you really think if Todd Bates thought he was one of those guys, that Nagy wouldn't be listening to him and reevaluating how they were slotting him? I mean, give me a break. It's why I talked about Bo Jandro, and I said I have questions, but when Brent, Goodwin, Dreiling, Lanning, and Kwiatkowski are all drooling over the guy, I'm not arrogant enough to say I know better linebacker. I'm a better linebacker evaluation than 6 guys with like 100 years of experience. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, when someone said we should sign Sone, let me ask you a question. So if you can have Sone or Jalen Brewster, who do you want? Sone, who is ranked, if you want to go by, you're doing this ranking nonsense, he's a composite top 100. Jalen freaking Brewster for 2027 is the number 1 defensive tackle in the country. And you have a huge advantage with him. You've been recruiting him for 4 years.
That's right.
He's been a Norman 10 times.
It's not even kind of close. Like Topher just said, it isn't even kind of close.
I love Sone, but guys, he needs to bake for 2 years. He's not starting next year. It's like Overton's not playing a down for OU next fall because he'll be behind Trent Wilson, David Stone, Nigel Smith, and probably Brian Harris. So, OU needs to slot guys where we talked a lot. If you're on this podcast, we talked a lot about the David Stone situation. How do you pay and develop, right? And one of the things you need to do is if a guy's going to take 2 years to develop, right, you pay him accordingly so you don't have money sitting off the field. You got to start getting used to this NFL philosophy, right? You can't have draft money sitting on the bench, not high money. That's why Jake Krull is OU's not going to get outbid on Jake Krull. They got to make sure they are as close as everybody else because, as we saw, if you saw the Rivals event, Jake Krull basically bitch slapped Felix Ojo around for the entire event. He did. I mean, he worked the guy. It was embarrassing to the point that Felix, who I love and he's a good kid, had to go on Twitter and defend himself because he got worked. Will OU still focus on KJ Ford? It depends if they get Krull and DeAnthony Lafayette. They can. KJ Ford's at Duncanville. He can come visit OU officially this fall. And if OU's kicking ass, they can bring him in if they need to. And they can bring in any number of guys if they need to. So let's talk about what's coming up from recruiting, okay?
Go ahead.
Deacon Schmidt is announcing tomorrow. All signs point to OU. That's your offensive tackle in the class, the right tackle. OU would have Deacon and Noah Best, 2 really good developmental players. One's inside, one's outside. They'll need 2 more offensive linemen, which they'll get this fall. Brent was very committed to basically getting the class done by September 1st. If you look at his last 3 classes, they functionally were done by September 1st. Last year's class, the gap between Michael Fasusi and Jet Liu was like 120 days. OU basically didn't get a verbal commitment for 90 days. It was like September 1st to December 3rd, whenever Jet Liu signed. But Nagy's gonna push that we need senior year film on guys because we need to see how they're developing, right? They're not finished products as juniors. They are, Jeremy Beal is a classic story of somebody who OU offered in November before February signing day, right? And Jeremy Beal ends up as being an old Big 12 player and part of probably the best defensive line OU has, other than the Tommy Harris, Dvorak, Jonathan Jackson, Dan Cody group, right? So there are players OU will reevaluate with their senior film and decide to spend more money on them because they are better. They have developed better. The questions OU had in June are answered by 6 games worth of film in October. This is how this is going to work.
Everybody knows you're going to have to pay. Nobody's saying that they're not going to pay, but you're not going to overpay for a guy that still needs to cook for a while. He still needs to be in the oven for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's panicking. Luke Fickell is on the hot seat,
and everybody's panicking right now before July 1, because July 1 happens. All of a sudden, you got to be careful what you do. So a lot of these kids are going to take that money that they can take. Right, this is a perfect storm for guys that normally would go here or wherever they may go. That if you can drum up enough cash to get them and give it to them up front before they go in July 1, then you got a chance to get them. But that doesn't mean that you have to, if you're Oklahoma or anybody in the SEC for that matter, certainly if you are recruiting at the top and have been recruiting at the top, which they have, you don't have to make this panic move that Luke Fickell's making, like what you're saying, Mr. Mason. It's silly talk.
And Mark
again,
Stoops,
one way or the other. You got to do it one or the other way. You can't do both.
Okay, so let's just talk about the fact that Davion Gross forecasted to OU, and it looks like OU's in the lead, right? Jake Krull, OU's in the lead. His time frame is a little all over the place, so we'll see what happens there. Jacob Eberhardt, who OU offered, who OU was basically trailing everybody, got him on campus, fell in love with Norman. Nebraska guys, Missouri guys, everyone's forecasting him to OU. Topher B saying that he just posted an announcement on Twitter for July 12th. He's announcing on July 12th. OU could get Deacon Schmidt. Braden Presley's announcing July 3rd. OU is definitely in the position there, but other programs, and OSU can't afford to lose Braden Presley, right? They can't, whereas OU can okay, if you want to go be an Aggie, so what? But OSU fans will completely mentally deconstruct themselves if they lose a Presley to OU. They have this in the belief that his internal Aggiedom will make sure he can't be a Sooner. So they can't process if that was to happen. And Gundy needs recruits. Like he said, he had and don't think he's not on the hot seat. I mean, let's be honest there. I mean, his team sucked ass last year.
That's what I'm saying. They went 0-9 last year. They have to overpay for everything and everybody they could possibly get. And they shouldn't be worried they should have been dumping this in the portal instead of worrying about the guys for next year, because you may not have next year if you're Mike Gundy.
I mean, their quarterback, okay. I mean, and OU was bad last year. That team never quit on Brent.
That's right.
And I'm saying completely quit, like the season was over. You don't beat Nebraska. You don't beat Alabama the way OU did. You don't battle Ole Miss the way OU did. Now, the South Carolina game, you want to say OU quit that day? I'm not going to argue I won't argue anything about that. But they rallied from that, and they didn't quit. So you've got Jordan Clay on the 12th. You've got Zach Turner on the 11th. Looks like Clay, maybe Baylor. Looks like Zach Turner, Miami. Of course, Miami just spent big bucks on another tight end. If I was Zach Turner, I'd be looking at what Miami spent on another tight end and realize that the 6'5", 220-pound guy ahead of me, who they just got a verbal commitment for, is maybe making their tight end room somewhere I don't want to be. And maybe Miami has to scale back their dollars in the first place, because no one has unlimited money, right? Everyone has a cap on what they're spending. A&M's spending money like a drunken sailor because they know that if the new rules go in place and hold, they're screwed. Because no one's going to want to go to College Station unless they're getting massive amounts of money. They're doing just what they did when they signed that Uber class when they figured out NIL was a way to cheat openly. They're doing the same thing. And it didn't work for them then. I know Elko's a better coach than Jimbo Fisher, but it may not work for them now. And
they've been perpetual 8-4 since 1940.
You know, and roadkill in Norman, basically. I mean, complete roadkill in Norman. So Chris, those are the decisions coming up. OU is still evaluating kids. OU can still offer new kids. They just offered a kid, 2026 6'4" wide receiver from Tennessee. They just offered him after the Rivals 5-star event. I don't know if it goes anywhere, but if you can get Davion Gross to go with Daniel Odom, that's a good wide receiver combo right there. That's one top 50 guy, one top 150 guy.
So,
and then if you could pick up, and again, like I said, Jaden Petit's going to take if Mateer's kicking ass, Jaden Petit's going to take one look at the Wisconsin's rag ass, suck ass passing game and realize I don't want to be in -5 degrees, no matter how much the jump around shit is cool, and maybe I should go somewhere. I want to be a wide receiver. Daniel Odom did this evaluation look right. He should have. Everyone said he's going to follow Jaden O'Neal, and he took one look at FSU's, at Gus's wide receiver development history. I think I don't have that on record, and say, why would I go there? I mean, you know.
Let me jump in here real quick. Get to Topher's comment. This Jaron Pulla kid. Is that a name?
Yeah, it's a Twitter. Okay. So one of the lesser known, well, it's blatant secrets is follow the follows, right?
Yeah.
This will tell you where players are going. Like Taj Overton, his last 10 follows were all Okie State players. Okay. Daniel Norman, after his OU visit, all his offers were OU players. So Jaron Pola, he's a brother as well. They're twins. They're wide receivers. They're starting to have a bunch of OU follows from the OU evaluation and coaching staff. Does that mean OU's going to offer? Maybe. They track lots of guys. Sometimes this hits. Sometimes it doesn't. It's just like with the portal. Last January, OU coaches would follow lots of players. It didn't mean they offered them or brought them in or really wanted them, but it is a sign, right? It is a sign. So OU guys, really, high school wide receivers, the talent pool is so huge. If you're freaking out about high school wide receivers, then I would tell you, don't. The talent pool is massive. It's all about development and finding the right guys who fit your system and what you want to do. Last point, D-line recruiting. Yeah, things are a little off there, okay? You didn't get Tavion Branch, who went to Rutgers. I think OU should reevaluate that number, match Rutgers' number, and flip Branch, right? They're trying to get T-Ron Richardson.
Yeah.
I think if you've lost, if you're not paying Overton and you're not paying in some other spots, D-line recruiting is the defensive tackle recruiting is the one area that's hurting right now. Everyone needs defensive tackles.
Except for that's the toughest one though, and it is going to cost the most. So like you said though, do you trust Todd Bates to make that decision on whether or not he's worth it, and to be able to go in there and talk to Nagy and say, look, this guy is that guy. He is worth top shelf money. I believe he's better than XYZ, whatever, right? This is where you have to trust that they're working together, right?
And supply and demand is a big element in this, right?
Damn right it is.
Wide receivers, their supply is through the roof, right?
Man, come on, man. Yeah.
Defensive, it's just fucking common sense.
You can go overpay.
There are more.
Go overpay for some of these wide receivers that haven't done anything. I mean, not everybody's Jeremiah Smith or Ryan
Williams.
Ryan Williams. They could be Ryan Wingo, and they didn't do shit.
or they're Jonte Cook, or
Same.
they're the
Yes,
Hudson,
Jonte
the
Cook,
Hudson,
absolutely.
they're the Hudson kid, or they're Trajan Bridges, or they're so the issue is that again it's just common sense.
I think it
There
makes
are
sense to do
more.
what just Sooner Cowboys finally said something smart in there. A wide receiver that you know is worth the money, then go get him in the portal. He's already proven it somewhere else.
And the wide receiver portal talent is again up here. Okay. But the defensive tackle is just common sense, guys. Last comment. There are a lot of 6'2", 180-pound guys who can run and play wide receiver. There aren't that many 6'5", 300-pound guys who are athletic enough to play defensive tackle.
True.
So Nagy went to Branch and offered what he thought would win. Rutgers countered. It doesn't mean OU's not like locked out from going back to Branch and saying, we screwed up, you're worth more than this, please come to Norman. And do that when you're playing well this fall and you've got more juice and Rutgers is getting their teeth kicked in as per usual. Rutgers always recruits well in the summer, loses kids in the fall. It's a trend. Go look at it. Schiano's a good recruiter, but he can't hold on to his best kids. They all bail on Rutgers in the late fall because why? It's all well and good to say, wow, Rutgers is on the rise, and then Rutgers gets their teeth kicked in again. Yeah. So,
look,
it's
OU. Would you address the Sooner in Texas, what he just said there? What about the blue chip ratio? The blue chip ratio is probably not going to stay around for very much longer.
It's a fallacy.
It is kind of a fallacy, but it's been proven that you got to have, it went from 60 to 50 percentile now and they're still in the 60s, by the way, at Oklahoma. But wait and see what happens. Look, whatever, I would tell you that if Oklahoma goes out and wins 10 games this year, then all of a sudden those recruits that they're going after are going to be bumped up.
Yeah. I just want to jump in here real quick and just make a point about the wide receivers. Shout out to I know he in the chat watching this, but we had a conversation honestly about Arbuckle. And it was one of those things where you're starting to hear like through kind of like the tea leaves that 7-on-7, some little drills that they're doing, and then just all the work that they're putting in. You're starting to hear Keontae Lewis, Satania. You're hearing good things from Burks, Kearney, Jermichael Carter kid, even the Josiah Martin kid. I think that's his last name from.
That's right, from Cal.
Yeah, from Arizona State. Yeah. So, from Cal. So one of the things about, that you're excited about if you've been paying attention to not just John Mateer, but to like Arbuckle and kind of watching those games and trying to dissect as much as you possibly can, is that Cal Williams is a dude, and I will take nothing from him. But Meredith and some of those other wide receivers they were just really solid and they were consistent. And so for me, for a guy like Arbuckle, I'm just over here saying I just want to make sure that he has pass catchers, guys who are going to consistently catch the ball, because I think that's all that he needs. I think that Arbuckle is in a position where he can show a lot of people, one, that we can move the ball on anybody, but two, that also he could get a lot of people involved. It's not just one person getting involved. You go and watch some of those games against Texas Tech, but especially the one against Washington, and you get to see Mateer's skill set on full display, but you also see him distribute that ball to a lot of different wide receivers in a lot of different ways, whether it's hitches or curls. It's just an offense that makes sense. So if you have good pass catchers out there, just solid guys, couple of possession receivers here, but you still have those big play receivers out there that can make those big plays, like they like to, do, as aggressive as they are in this offense. I just think when you talk about that right there, everything I talked about, consider that, and then you look at this recruiting stuff, then you have to just understand that I don't think that Arbuckle needs amazing wide receivers and this and that. I think there's a certain type of wide receiver we're trying to get to now. But at the same time, I think that, these guys here, I definitely trust Chris Mason and some of the people in the chat as well who talk about the wide receivers. I think that you're fine because you can go and find wide receivers, and there's going to be plenty of wide receivers that nobody's talking about right now, and guys that you can pivot back to, and guys that you can go and actually get and steal as well. I think Nagy, if you've really been paying attention to what Nagy's doing, Nagy will pay money for the guy. He will pay top dollar for the guy.
Right.
But
next year.
Yeah.
Next year, right. OU goes 8-4, 9-3, right? Finishes this year. OU has a line of 2027 elite guys who they are recruiting, and they're not recruiting them to then get outbid. Not superstars. Cooper Hackett, OU will pay. OU will pay for Jason Witten's kid, Cooper Witten. OU will pay Jalen Todd Bates is not sending poems to Jalen Brewster every freaking day to not have the money to get an elite defensive tackle that he has a 3-year edge on the rest of college football. Nagy, when you watch Jalen Brewster abuse people and you realize he's an inside pass rushing defensive tackle, he's 6'4", 300 pounds, and he's a high school junior, Nagy's gonna pay what's gonna be going on. And OU, once July 1st hits, OU will know by the time 2020, guys, I talked about a sausage process during working through all of the reshaping the roster with spring, and David Stone got caught in the grinder. Some other guys got caught in the grinder as well. Yep. OU lost Sawchuk because they had to redirect money elsewhere because people were poaching players, and Nagy had to make a difficult decision, and his decision was, I've got to keep this one guy, so I've got to let Saw go. I mean, this is the new world. But once July 1st hits and by October, we'll have some idea of what's going on, Nagy will be in a better position to evaluate how much money he's really got, where he can spend it, and what's going on. What is market value, right? Mm-hmm. It's the market value is just so skewed right now because teams are panic recruiting. It's like
it's just the microwave society that we got right now that everybody thinks that you can just microwave a championship, and you're not going to do it.
We know for a fact, talking to recruits, that schools are already trying to lowball previous commitment offers because they're afraid of July 1st.
Yeah.
We know this, right? And kids are like, wait a minute, you just pulled the rug under me. You said X, and they're like, well, July 1st, we won't have that much. No, that's already going on. Look at the FSU lawsuit that's going on that just got published, where FSU is being accused of lowballing student athletes. It was on there. FSU had to put out a press release to defend it. So, okay, Sooner in Texas, LK9 put his one up. Chris Mason, so why pay next year but not this year? Put that one up. I'll deal with that, and then we can decide where we are. Okay. First off, OU has decided that there's only really 1 or 2 players in state that they were really battling for. Okay. Next year, there's 10. Okay. So tell me, 2 or 10.
Don't buy into the OSU hype, folks. Don't buy into the OSU hype.
2 or 10. Which is higher? Which is better? I would say 10. I would say Caden Penny, Cooper Hackett, Case Alexander, Bryce Brown, Samaj Stanford, probably the Mustang kid, Gibson, I think is his name, is going to be in a top 100 kid as well because he's 6'3", 180. But yeah, and then you've got the Texas guys like Cooper Witten, Montre Jackson, Jalen Brewster. You've got all these guys that in Texas who camped at OU, you've built relationships with. But guys, the real reality here is if Brent doesn't get this done on the field, it all falls apart anyway. So if Brent does get this all together, OU will with more. You don't want to spend your marketing juice when everyone's saying you're going to get fired. You want to spend it in October After, if you win the Red River rivalry game,
Yep.
you beat Texas.
Yep.
That's when you spend your money. When Brent's maybe OU 6-0.
Yeah,
in the
when
top-
they don't get the benefit of negative recruiting you anymore because you're 6-0 right now.
Yeah, so you were telling me Brent's going to get fired. Brent's 7-0, and they're coming back to me saying they're not getting fired. So were you lying to me all spring, or what? And now I'm going to go officially visit OU. I don't care if I'm committed to you, because kids can take as many official visits as they want right now, right?
Yeah.
That rule changed. So OU has, if you noticed, OU hasn't been bringing in an assload of kids. They are saving scholarship spots and official visits for this fall to spend their, there's a term like don't spend your powder, don't blow your powder, your gunpowder, wait until your gunpowder's dry. Don't try and shoot your gun when your gunpowder is wet. It's a bad analogy. It's the only one I can come up with. OU's gunpowder right now is drenched with negative recruiting.
Yeah.
You can't spark and fire the cannon when your gunpowder is wet. This fall, if OU's on a winning streak, your gunpowder's now dry. Hit the cannon and start making an impact. So it's marketing 101. Don't piss away your marketing budget to the wrong guys at the wrong time, right? You don't, you use it when it's going to be most effective.
With that being said, Chris Mason, I think the last topic that we'll have, and again, it's just a recruiting pod for you guys, people, but who do you get a sense that, or who's on commitment watch? Like who do you, where you think?
Deacon Schmidt.
Yeah.
Okay. Davion Gross, as soon as he announces the date. Jake Krull is somewhere floating on commitment watch. The name Jacob Eberhardt is new. Watch his freaking film. He's 6'2", 6'3", 210. He is another Robert RSG assassin at safety. He's from the Missouri area, loves OU, loved his visit. He was posting Instagram things like every 10 minutes with a smile on his face.
Yeah, he was.
He's on commit watch. OU, if I'm OU, I spend money on Jordan Clay and get him away from Baylor. And I how do you do that? Emmett Jones needs to do that. Nagy needs to do that, and go focus. Offensive line, OU needs to reassess what they're doing, find some guys they like this fall after senior film, and aggressively go after them. That's what I would do. So that's what they need to do. Defensive tackle, they need to figure out where they are. Elijah Golden is probably heading to Notre Dame, but if you could make the Elijah Golden thing work, I would do that. If you are, I would split money on Tavion Branch. And other than that, if you could get 3 guys, that would be ideal. Teron Richardson, there's some vague issue with him leaving Virginia and leaving home. So I continue to evaluate guys and make moves. Deuce Geralds, again, the classic example. Everyone's throwing big money at him right now, and I'm concerned if you try and go after Deuce Geralds, an Ole Miss legacy, who Ole Miss desperately needs to get. What's the upside there? You're never, even if you get a verbal commitment from him, you're never going to be. Mississippi at the last minute is just going to try and throw a big bag and try and work a back end deal and do what they've always done, right? So that's what's going to happen there. But I think, if you can get Deacon Schmidt, that gives you another offensive lineman. If you can get Jacob Eberhardt, that gives you a safety. I take Presley if he wants to go to OU at the right amount and be developed by a superior coaching staff. And if he can't smartly realize that, then go be a stupid Aggie and watch Mike Gundy get fired in January. And then if you have the other guys, Tyler Ruxer is going to pick OU on 7-7. That's your second good tight end. Everyone complains about the frickin' tight end room, and OU is rapidly close to revamping and fixing it. This is a big top. Everyone's ignoring that topic, but we're about to end up with two tight ends that are ranked in the top 200 by services. That's a big improvement. They're real tight ends too. If you watch their film, they're very, very good. And they've offered 2 tight ends for 2027 who are also very good. in-state guys. So you're very close to fixing that room. But overall, this is where we are. OU's taking some hits, needs to figure out where they are. Do they need 3 wide receivers? Do they need 4 wide receivers? Figure out what you want to do and make some runs at folks. Again, you could give another run at Craig Dandridge when UGA's passing game struggles again for the 5th time in.
They better run the ball a lot better than they did last year.
The Georgia Stallions.
Exactly. I mean, it's they've got problems at offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach. Any UGA fan,
watch how quick it turns for Steve Sarkisian too if he goes 8-4 and doesn't make the playoff when everybody is saying national championship and Arch wins the Heisman. You go 8-4, miss the playoffs, even 9-3, miss the playoffs, and see how quick all that shit goes by the wayside.
They are 3-2 heading into Dallas if Ohio State knocks them around and DJ Lagway, has a stupid day in Gainesville. And again,
it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long.
The swamp's not a fun place to play.
Look, people like Bevo sitting there acting like we don't remember that 2 years ago before the season, y'all were ready to fire that sucker.
Yeah.
Don't act like we don't know. We don't remember all that shit.
I mean,
because we do.
Look, OU doesn't
6 straight leads at halftime and going 5-8 in the first year, or 5-7 in the first season.
We're a Drake Stoops pass interference call from having a rematch for OU in the Big 12 title game.
That's right.
OU winning that game and Sark being on the hot seat.
Damn Skippy.
I mean, we'll know that for a fact. So let's not pretend it's not true.
Yeah, he's just coming in and talking, but we're going to talk too, man. So keep it up. Keep it up.
Yeah, it's up. So, but yeah, overall, it's OU has, again, we're not really getting this. Bo Bentley just got ranked. ESPN just re-ranked Bo Bentley like near the top 100, right? He had a great Elite 11. He's going to be a top 5 quarterback. He's going to be a top 50 by all the services. If you can get Cruel, he's going to be a top 50 guy. I like the pieces they're adding around it. They're going to get reevaluated and re-ranked. I think Ja'Cory Smith is badly underranked. I think Derek Johnson's underranked. Brian Harris, like it's a repetitive point. And what do all of these guys have? The makeup you want and the measurables you want. And I'm going to keep hitting you with this. It's just the way it is. Eberhardt, he's got the makeup you want, and he's 6'3", 205 or 210, and he hits like a freight train, and he looks like a freaking linebacker playing safety. He's got great film. So, this is, you just got to understand, we're hitting a confluence of events. The 7-1 panic, OU being negatively recruited like no one's business. That 7-1 panic means lower level programs are dropping cash they never would before. So when you say, well, how can OU lose a wide receiver to Kentucky? Because Mark Stoops is about to lose his fucking job, and his fan base is going freaking out that they have no wide receivers. That's why they drop cash on Dickerson. And OU is just, Nagy's holding the line. He's like, just like the Patriots always held the line on free agents, right? When they would let guys go before they fell off, and they would never overpaying for older players. Just sub that in for guys that our staff evaluates as we're concerned the time that it's going to take to get them on the field means we're going to have too much money on the bench and not enough money on the field. So you give Valdinsone $2 million, and Todd Bates says it's 2 years until he can play. That's $4 million on the bench, not on the field. And then you can't give money to Jalen Brewster or Zane Rowe because you gave it to Valdinsone. I mean, it just, the barely 4-star quarterback, Bevo, Dyer had a great Elite 11. He looks like a 5-star quarterback. See, I'm objective. I can say that. Bentley could be a 5-star quarterback. All right. Again, why do we lose Petit to Wisconsin? Do the math. It's money. Wisconsin, he wasn't looking at Wisconsin at all. They were like 4th on his list. And why did he choose Wisconsin? Because it's June. He doesn't realize Wisconsin's a frozen hellhole during half of his football playing season there. So he doesn't realize what was. I lived in Chicago, guys. I know what Wisconsin is really like in November and December. And he's not looking at the big picture of development and offense. And again, Wisconsin offers him all this money, and Luke Fickell gets fired. That paper is not worth what it's written on in terms of his NIL deals. None of it is. So Chris with a K.
They called the chronic masturbator, rent free.
I thought it was when Jason came on here. We had to give Jason some time.
He wasn't on last week.
No, he wasn't. But no, we had to give Jason some time to get to get something off. But yeah, people, look, that's your recruiting pod for you guys. Try to do it short, keep it short next time. But you guys got an hour and 11 minutes out of us, just straight recruiting call, or excuse me, recruiting talk. Can't talk right now. But we're definitely gonna be doing these videos more this season. So
I got more coming later. I'm gonna drop a video here in a little bit. This Okie Light chest pumping is hilarious to me.
This guy.
Get ready, because it's coming.
But again, people, hey, listen.
The fact of the matter is, we're gonna steal Overton back when we actually need him, and he's
if they want him, if they decide they want him,
if we even want him.
Gentlemen, save it for the next pod. Look, like, subscribe, do all those different things. Share the video, share the content. You guys, look, we're here. We're pumping out this content all the time, weekly, trying to stay weekly. But that's what you're going to get from us, just recruiting pods. And then once we get closer to the season, people, we are, I think, less than 9 Saturdays away pretty much from college football. We got July, got SEC Media Days that are coming up. Got a lot of different things that are a lot of tea leaves, a lot of notes. Camp is going to be here before you know it, that fall camp. So people, you got to be on the lookout, because after July 4th weekend, then we will be rocking and rolling pretty hard. So definitely, like I said, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell on all 3 channels and all the rest of that stuff. Check out the Patreon for Chris Mason. Check out Jason and Coach on their podcast and all the pods that Jason is bumping out as well for you guys. It's content over here with us, and that's what we're giving you. So with that being said, until next time, Texas.